Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We are your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 9th of September, 2018. It is a Sunday. We go live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with our what?
UK and Euro News. I'm sorry, I'm just stuck on the fact that like it was 1:05 when we got like really started, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're so much closer to 1 than we
are
been
closer.
In a long time.
Yeah, it's usually around 1:15, 1:18-ish. But yeah, here we are. Okay, so we have a lot of news to bring you guys. We're going to recap some news that we covered on Friday, which is Tommy possibly joining UKIP. We're going to talk about the Swedish elections, which you guys probably saw in the title coming up. I think you got a little bit something about Jeremy Corbyn and some anti-Semitism.
Their whole Labour Party is literally dissolving because of anti-Semitism. Tony Blair was part of the Labour Party for 40 years, and he's like, it's done. It's done. Like,
wow.
Stick a fork in it. It's done.
Good. And we have Nigel. Now, this Nigel interview
with Ari from Australia,
right, is going to be interesting.
Yeah, but I've been thinking on this all day.
Okay.
And Nigel went to Australia, and he has to know that while he's there, as much as he's welcomed,
right,
and a lot of people want to hear what he has to say, he has to educate people. And I have to say that even here on Resistance Chicks, we've been guilty of kind of putting Islam in a giant basket. There are millions and millions and millions of Muslims.
True story.
So when you watch this video with Ari and Nigel, what we have to have is censorship off.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to be able to discuss what's going on and to be able to educate. What happened
right.
during the fight to during our revolution, and black slaves were brought over here. This is not politically correct, but I'm going to be honest with you. They were uneducated. These were sheep herders. There's nothing wrong with herding sheep. Okay, but these are not people that they brought over who had delved into philosophy, building giant buildings,
mm-hmm.
great education like the Greeks and
right.
philosophers. And so what lies were perpetuated were that because of the color of their skin,
right.
they were not able to be philosophers. Educated. And
right.
so now there is a difference between what an uneducated person and an educated person.
Were that because
we of the live color of their skin on right. the corner of Redneshville. Many white uneducated. Stop. Now there is a difference between what white uneducated people. Michelle, it's true. Batavia. We call it that way for a reason. Okay? There are many white uneducated people.
Right.
Education has nothing to do with the color of your skin. If you're looking at me, tell me something now before she's going on. There are many. Okay, well, if I have lipstick on my teeth,
no, I would tell you that.
I would ask you all to tell me before I keep going on and do an hour show with lipstick on my teeth. That's what happens when you have the red. Okay, stop touching. You can just tell me you want my hair. I have lipstick on my teeth.
No, I would tell you that.
To touch. I would ask you all.
If you're just joining us here at Resistance
This is my Me Too movement.
With
Me Too.
And the fact that we are sisters, and I am the sister that has. Oh, we're having echo.
See, this is my Me Too movement. Me Too.
I think I fixed it.
It's totally going to make more sense. They need to know if it's echoing anyway. Why am I shushing?
There we go. I know what it was. So, for those of you that don't know, got it fixed. Sorry, 30-second lag here. Sounds like female Satan. Thank you. So what? I pull up the Facebook Live. Yes, we got it. Every time we go live so that I can monitor the chat on Facebook. But I can't pull up the Facebook Live until we are actually live. And it automatically starts with the volume. So I have to click mute really fast. Well, I did. And then I clicked it again on accident because I didn't think it went.
Okay, so you know
were
what?
hearing us twice.
You know what? Maybe we'll just cover all that again when I play the Nigel video.
So cover the fact that we're sisters and I was picking on you, because I think that's what they were. That's where the echo was.
Well, in my philosophy, we're gonna hit some of these news stories first. All right, let's go straight into Tommy Robinson possibly joining UKIP. So do you have the video queued up?
I do.
Jared Batten.
Tommy.
He does back this, but I want to go into why they might not want him there.
We have to share these.
Okay? And why they would want him there. Okay? So here we go.
Okay. Wait. Switching. Here he is.
I've done. This is my first video I've done since being released. This is my first video I've done since being released. And I want to make it to address UKIP's NEC. I've seen in the media there's a big debate now on whether Tommy Robinson, myself, will be allowed to join UKIP. And actually the NEC are going to make a decision on Sunday, not on whether I'm allowed to join, but whether they're going to let their members make that decision. They're basically saying, do they trust their members to make their own decision?
Wow.
Do they believe in democracy in their own party?
Scared, yeah.
Or will the 12 members of the NEC, I believe it's 12, make a decision that they don't trust their own supporters? That they'll make a decision, like the establishment do, to tell everyone how they can think. Now, UKIP have the opportunity to electrify this country's working class. I've seen people make comments that, oh, if Tommy Robinson joined UKIP, they might lose 2,000 members. You might gain 20,000. You might cause a political revolution in Britain. We have sat for too long, and we get excited in this country. Sweden's elections are coming up. We get excited about watching the election in Sweden. The Swedish Democrats, good luck to you. We're hand on heart. We want the best for Sweden. May get 30% of the vote. We get excited about the Italian election. It's about time the British public had a party they can get excited about. And I applaud Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage concentrated on Brexit, and he deserves the applause for bringing us Brexit. Nigel wasn't prepared to talk about Islam. And maybe because he didn't want to drain himself, and he didn't want the accusations and the problems it will bring. And he wanted to concentrate on his focus, which was Brexit, and well done for that. But please don't try and condemn other people who are brave enough to challenge this. I've watched and I've met Jared Batten, and I want to say a thank you to UKIP, to Jared Batten, for speaking up on my behalf, for reaching out to the people of this country, for going and mixing it with the general people on the street in this country. I've stood and I listened to Jared Batten, and that is the only politician I've watched and I've listened to that would make me get up and vote. I would join UKIP, but I find it amazing that the NEC could make a decision themselves that would prevent their own members from making their own decision on their party. So on Sunday, working class communities across this country, the name Tommy Robinson, it's become a symbol. It's become far more than me. The Free Tommy movement was not about me. It was about the British public.
I've been fighting the referendum. I've been fighting it in the early 70s, I fought against it.
A movement has been created to give those people a voice. On Sunday, the NEC of UKIP, you have a choice to make. Do you represent that feeling, or do you crush it? This isn't actually about Tommy Robinson, me personally. This is about whether you're willing to take up that movement, willing to politicise that movement, and willing to give people in this country a voice against the wrongs that we know are happening, a voice to challenge the establishment. And if you look at the response from the left-wing media in this, they're terrified of me joining UKIP. They're terrified. They know the support we have. They know the support I have across this country. They know the way the public are feeling, and they want to do everything they can to stop it.
So there you have it. We shall see how that unfolds.
So,
are we going to another video?
No, you can take that out of my ear. Thank you.
No touching. Oh.
For that, you can remove the thing from my ear. Gerard Batten has actually said that he supports... supports Tommy Robinson joining UKIP. we're going to go into the Swedish election right after this, because it kind of really, it flows together. UKIP has a blanket policy of not allowing anyone who is part of any sort of, who is an ex-member of any right-wing extremist group.
Yeah.
Now, I have a huge problem now with right-wing extremists. The title of this, because I'm going to play for you a video of the UK's Met boss who will not, who keeps saying white right-wing extremism, but she will not say that terrorists are Islamists. So I'm going to play that for you. But first of all, when we're talking about Tommy Robinson being the ex-leader of the EDL,
Right.
he left the EDL because what happens is when you're faced with a lot of these situations, like many of the people in our chat, I want you here. I'm not angry that you're here. I want you to be here and be educated and recognize that the UK has not always had a problem with Islam,
Right.
with Muslims. And it's not just because of it's this new wave. Like there are Muslims and people who have Islam as their background and faith, who, as we've talked to many Brits who came actually in the late 70s when in Saudi Arabia, in Iran, there was a huge crackdown and Islamists took over these countries.
Right.
And the Salafists in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So they went from girls wearing miniskirts and bikinis.
And people were like, you know what? That's too much for me. We're going to leave.
We're going to go to a more Western society.
Right. And they did.
And they did. And those people integrated. They're beautiful Europeans. They love the countries that they're in. However, you have an entirely new generation that has been born after 1979, when our U.S. CIA, you can thank our CIA for your terrorism in Europe.
Absolutely.
Our CIA messed up people and gave rise to, yes, Islam and the Prophet Muhammad and all these things are in the Quran. But most people said that they were Muslim because they were forced into it. It became their culture. Muhammad obviously took over many Christian areas. And instead of our governments, hey, you know what? Let's encourage Christians to send some missionaries over there. And let's, show people the light of Jesus Christ, right? In 1979, if instead of sending CIA-backed people to rouse up these hardline Islamists,
Right.
if we had sent, but see, here's the thing, hardline Islamists get things done. And that's what our government needed for oil prices and things like that. They wanted government to get things done.
Yeah.
That's why we have no problem with the communist Chinese, because, they can get things done. Because they just tell everybody else what to do. They have no democracy. People don't have a voice.
It takes time to go through the voice of the people, and they just don't do it.
So what you have is you literally have two kinds of Islam, okay? The one kind of Islam is not compatible with the West. The other kind of Islam is compatible with the West.
Yeah.
And we have a difficult conundrum because each person individually carries within themselves which kind of Muslim they are.
Yeah.
And so you literally almost have to go up to each person and say, hey, what kind of Muslim are you? And that is a sticky situation, but it's much better than the blanket, all Muslims are great, and the blanket, all Muslims are terrorists.
Sure.
Okay? We have to be able to, for the sake of humanity, talk about the people who are Islamists and ask people and get this word out there that it's really bad to be an Islamist. It's really bad to force women to wear hijabs. It's really bad to wear... If you're in the UK and you can't say, hey, you look like you're wearing a letterbox, okay, that's a problem. And that gives rise to the EDL. that gives rise to the neo-Nazis, the people who are so frustrated and so angry, and they don't know how to get their anger out, and they're not given a voice. They're not having somebody like Nigel Farage sit down with them and say, let's talk about this.
Right.
Okay? So with UKIP not allowing ex-members of far-right or whatever groups makes no sense. First of all, when you say far-right, what are you saying? Because what we are seeing is that in America, we hear right-wing and we hear Christian.
Mm-hmm. Conservative.
Moral.
Right.
We see homosexual as a sin. Fornication as a sin.
Second Amendment rights.
Second Amendment rights. Things like that. So that has traditionally been right-wing. Well, some people say it's all the bad parts of anybody, according to liberals, everything that's bad is right-wing. So when you have Islamic extremists, they're far-right. Right? But is far-right economic? Is it communism? Is it socialism? Is it religious? What is right? The thing of it is, we know what left is. We don't know what right is.
But see, I think
and they're labeling everybody. But see, here's the thing: they label everybody far right, but they don't ever say far left. They never, ever, ever, ever say far left extremist.
You say we don't know what far right is, and we know what far left is. Well, since you know what, or not far, when you know what left is, then you know what right is, and you know what far right is. And unfortunately, it is a misnomer. Right and left, to me, in my humble opinion, boils down to economics. It boils down to statism. It boils down to pretty much just, I hate to just say the word political because that encompasses a lot of things, but to me it boils down to socialism and capitalism. You know what I mean? It boils down to the state should run everything and make all sorts of laws, and we have limited government. Okay, right. So we have mass government and we have limited government. That's it.
That's what it should be. And so a far-right extremist would be an anarchist. No government whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Obviously, Christians in the pews today are not far-right extremists because they very much love rules and guidance and things like that.
Right.
So there is no such thing. The only people who are far-right extremists are anarchists who advocate for no rules. That's obviously not Islam, and it's obviously not conservative Christians.
Right.
It's a very small portion of any world population, and it almost meets together in the circle with communists.
Yeah.
Because what communists use is anarchism to invoke communism.
Exactly.
Okay, so Tommy Robinson should be allowed to join UKIP. Anybody, it's like saying that anybody who's an ex-gang member can never be part of a party anymore. Like, you're always labeled. What happened to, like, forgiveness and tolerance and, hey, I used to believe this, but I don't anymore. So, fine, join the party. Like, he's not an ex-convict. They're not saying, it's not even like saying no ex-cons. It's like you're more likely to be able to join a political party in the UK if you've, like, stood up a bank with, armed robbery or something.
Well, I can understand only slightly if he literally went straight from the EDL to cross over to UKIP. And he didn't. He left the EDL on purpose because he did not mess.
Well, that would mean that he's a current member.
Right.
They're not saying current members. They're saying ex-members. And I understand what you're saying. But, yeah, it's all semantics.
Patriot Gallery.
Didn't you say in your last show that right and left started over in the Europe or something?
Horatio said that right and left started during the French Revolutionary War, and it was the aristocrats versus the people.
Okay, so in America, we have a right and a left. From that, it's just a party of the slavery and a party who believes in individual rights for everybody's equal, and each person has individual rights. So far left or left is going to be the party of slavery, which D'Souza, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Okay. He has proven that everything slavery, communism, socialism,
it's all on the left.
Is all left.
Horrible, awful things are from a left mindset.
Okay, and so the Democrats are party of the slavery.
Yes.
So Islam, who believes in slavery,
is a
will
party
fit
of the left.
On the left.
Exactly.
The KKK, which is white supremacists,
exactly.
fits on the left.
Exactly.
Those who believe that all men are created equal and have individual rights, well, you can't have communism, socialism,
Right.
America, because people have their own free will to
And
decide.
property rights.
And they have property rights. But see, socialism, you were forced to give.
Right.
Where the Bible says God loves a cheerful giver who willingly gives.
Amen.
You cannot force somebody to volunteer their money
Right.
to pay for somebody else's goods and services. Each person is responsible for providing for themselves. And if a person wants to give to charity to help the poor or the needy, that's their free will choice. They have to choose on their own free will. So the right in America is those people who believe in liberty, like Le Pen says, la liberté, and liberty is a French word. Anyways, the right is those who believe in individual rights to choose whether they're going to be good or bad, whether they're going to give or not give. You can't say, well, giving's good, we're going to force people to give. No, that's slavery.
Right.
So that's Democratic.
Right.
That's the Democratic Party pro-slavery.
Right. So, actually, what's funny is that there's an ex-Muslim who I follow, Yasmin, on Twitter, and she says, people label me far right because I'm just anti-Islamist, and she's very much anti-Islam, anti-every religion. And she says, I believe in abortion, I believe in free education, I believe in free healthcare, and she listed everything that truly is on the left.
Absolutely.
And so many of these people who they're labeling far right, the neo-Nazis, if you look up, and I have, what a neo-Nazi's agenda is full socialism. It's all Karl Marxism. It's take everybody's stuff, okay?
Dinesh
They're
D'Souza
not
breaks it down
far
in
right.
the Death
They
of
are
a Nation
far left.
documentary you guys can go see.
And there's different subgroups, okay? So there's people on the right. There's who are against mass migration of people for population replacement because it's bringing in obviously not the best people. Speaking of bringing in not the best people, and I am going to go to Sweden's elections here. The Afghan president tells Germany, pretty much all of Europe, not to become a fortress because the low birth rate Europe needs migrants. Now, Afghanistan used to be a safe country again in the 70s. Americans would get in a little Winnebago and drive around, and Afghanistan people will be fine. You have this rise again of the Taliban. Mm-hmm. You have a rise of Al Qaeda. You have a rise of these hardline Islamists who have taken over all of the Middle East. They are actually keeping good, honest, loving, caring Muslims under their control. I've seen these people in the video. See, here's where the education comes out, right? As I was talking about with the screaming satanic woman that you heard, we need education. We need the videos. We need to hear from the people in Saudi Arabia who have a voice, who say, hey, the women who really want to go without the headscarves, the women who want to wear nice clothes, and and the men who love them and who love people, they are there. They do exist in Egypt. They do exist in Saudi Arabia. They do exist in Iran. But when they speak up, they go to jail.
Exactly.
All right? And so these are my friends. These are my brothers and sisters in the world of humanity.
Exactly.
All right? And I am going to stand for anybody who is oppressed. These are people who do not believe in the teachings of Muhammad that you can take a 6-year-old girl for a wife.
Right.
They do not follow the full precepts of the Quran. There are, however, there are good precepts in the Quran. There are the first half of it is peace and loving, and a lot of the Muslims only have ever read some of these peaceful passages, and they're like, oh, peace, loving. Some of them will say, Jesus is in there and Mary is in there. Okay, we need to be able to educate ourselves. And I'm not mad at anybody who isn't educated. Mm-hmm. I need Nigel Farage to educate people. I need people to be educated so that we aren't fighting, so that we aren't arguing, so that we can talk with each other on these issues, because our CIA government literally lit a fire and sent all these yellow jackets all over the world, giving the majority Muslims a horrible name. Okay, so that you have people who hate Islam Okay, and then they go and to bolster their arguments, they find the scriptures, and then you have these imams, just like in America, we have a lot of bad people who have risen to power, like Obama and Hillary Clinton, saying, oh, this is what our founding fathers mean, right? I'm not saying that Muhammad is great. I'm saying that we have two battles to fight, right?
Exactly.
We have to fight the Islamists on their hardline belief in the Quran, right? But we also have to have an open arm for people who say, I'm a Muslim, I'm not leaving Islam, okay? But I hate all this stuff.
Well, and I would like to maybe, for those of you that think, like, hang on, is this the same Resistance chicks that we always watch? I understand where Leah's coming from. I want to throw something out there to calm you guys that are, like, totally freaking out, like Leah's been possessed by an alien or something. Here's the deal, guys. The people that are flooding into Europe right now, the Muslims that are flooding into Europe right now, are not these peace-loving, I just want to become a European and integrate, and now I've always wanted to go and live in, you know, the UK and become a Brit, and that's what I'm so excited about doing.
I love Western democracy. I love freedom of speech.
So the illegal migration that is happening is bringing in the absolute worst of the religion that shall not be named. And so it is okay to stand on the one side and say, that has to stop. We cannot allow those people to keep coming into our country because they are raping, they are pillaging, they are bombing, they are taking over all of our churches. They are, you know, doing the call to prayer at all hours of the day. They're blocking the streets. They do not want to become part of our society. It is okay to say all of a sudden, no, y'all can't come in. We got to put a stop to this. And then reassess your view.
Here's the thing. You need to interview people.
Yeah, you need
and Denmark is making sure, I have an article here. Denmark proposes a law requiring migrants to shake hands to receive citizenship. Now, these are little things. Hey, I'm going to test you.
Yeah.
Do you want to be part of our society or not? Okay, so you've got Danish government put forward a bill which would require migrants to shake hands with municipal officials before receiving citizenship, but several leftist mayors say they will refuse to obey the law. John Schmidt that says it's a symbolism. It's not very liberal to force people to shake hands if you come from a culture where you are greeted in a different way. Why are you greeted in a different way? Because the sexes aren't supposed to touch. You know what? That's your culture doesn't belong in the West.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? You need to go back and reassess, because I guarantee you those Muslims who came over in the 70s to be part of Western culture, you know, not wearing hijab, they're shaking people's hands, right? I mostly guarantee you. I'm not putting money on it. The bill would also make attending the citizenship ceremony, which will be facilitated by at least one or more representatives of the municipality in which they reside, mandatory to become a citizen. Should the new handshake bill pass law, it would not make Denmark the only country in Europe that could refuse citizenship by the refusal to shake an official's hand. Earlier this year, in both France and Switzerland, Muslims were denied citizenship for refusing to shake hands with government officials. In Denmark, you comply with the law even if you disagree with its content. They have a program to enroll migrant children as young as 1 into Danish language classes, and a goal of preventing segregation and criminality. So they're trying to work with something that is actually not easily worked with at all. Now, back to this Afghan president. He said that Germany should pretty much let down its barriers because to his nation's migrants, reminding the country that Europe is in a demographic decline and needs foreign labor. No, actually,
when you're coming over for free stuff, that's not... You can't use that argument.
So here is, in my opinion, far left, because he says your social programs will not be upheld unless you have a bigger tax base. So that's socialism. But
they're not even coming over for that. Like, I totally get what you're saying, but they are coming over to drain the system, not contribute to it.
Now, we do know that Afghanistan is in a dismal state. Okay? But he says this. This is absolutely hilarious. He says, here we go. You want to get, Where am I at? I'm just going to go back to the top so I can get to okay. Dodging the question from German tabloid reporter whether it was safe for his citizens to return home, he said, safety in Afghanistan is a very difficult notion to define. Psychologically and moral, people have to decide whether it's safe to come back. In 2017, Germany logged 16,423 applications from Afghan, a third after Syria and Iraq. Germany does not have a strong record for successful deportations of failed asylum seekers. It is calm. Invoking post-Nazi Germany, the Afghans said that the country had fundamentally transformed itself and told Germans to judge Afghan migrants by their successes, not the standard set by many who have been convicted of acts of murder, rape, and terrorism.
The many.
Germany stands for me as a beacon of hope, and this is Tahia, by the way, and as a beacon of social integration, economic growth, and also compassion, human compassion. Third-generation Afghans is really likely to come back and transform this country. Liar. Asked whether he thought German Chancellor Angela Merkel's decision to unilaterally open the continent floodgates to a pledged unlimited number of migrants in 2015 had spurred on the migrant crisis, he believed that Merkel was taking her classic approach and made a rational decision, given Europe's declining population, and declared that society's capacity for absorption is much greater than fearmongers have. You see, the issue that Europe does not confront is the system of demography. You don't have the birth rate to underwrite your social policies. You need labor. You need the injection of a younger generation.
I got a great idea. Rather than bringing in other people to leech off the system, to contribute to your social program and your worker base, why don't we kind of down homosexuality not on the basis of morals, not at all on the basis of morals, only on the basis that it does not promote more children? Why don't we down perversion, okay, and upplay the family and start doing like they're doing in Poland and other countries, Russia, promoting making babies for your country? That is an excellent idea. It is such a good idea. I can't believe I just thought of that idea. Okay. It is the idea. This is bogus. This is ridiculous. You do not ever need other people to come into your country when you have people in your country that can make babies for your country.
Here's what it was actually at the beginning. He said, he's delighted that many Afghans have fled his country straight from camps in Germany to become leading doctors, engineers, computer experts, and others.
No, they didn't.
You know what?
No.
Afghanistan is not producing leading doctors, engineers, computer experts, and others, and I'm sorry.
You know who is? Who is? India. The people from India, they come to our country here. And they have all the doctors. We go to the doctors.
I know. They're really good doctors,
go to see Dr.
They're really
Patel.
kind. They're
we go
wonderful.
and see Dr. Ramesh.
Yeah.
We see all of the Indian doctors.
I think they're all named Patel.
They are all in the computer software as well. Yeah. And lots in the medical profession.
And you know what? They're not blowing anybody up.
They are not.
They love being an American.
They love to be an American.
Here's the thing. I'm not... If there would be no Britain First. Mm-hmm. There would be no EDL. If the migrants were coming over and they were a doctor or an engineer living next door and was just part of their country.
Do you know why? Because the doctor says, first, do no harm.
You said something earlier about going back when their countries are safe. I'm like, wait. There are people who cannot make that journey. They made the journey a lot on foot or hopping trains and stuff and on boats. These have to be young men do this because women can't do it. Children can't do it. The elderly can't do it. Gray-haired men and women can't do it. So these cowards, I mean, I'm thinking these are really cowards. If the story was true, they left the elderly, they left the women, they left the children to be slaughtered. I mean, what kind of man does that?
Right. So you are bringing in the most undesirable of any society. Even if the society itself is desirable, you're bringing over the worst of the worst that just, like, hightailed it and said, bye, Ma, bye, Grandma, bye, little brother and sister, I'm getting out of here.
Taliban taking you out tonight.
It's just when Sweden sells its people, or when Denmark or, BBC or UK says, oh, you got to feel sorry for them. They're Germany even, Merkel. Their country's war-torn. Well, they need to get back there and fight the war.
Right.
Only cowards run from a war.
Right.
So, Merkel, what are you doing? These guys are a bunch of cowards. You need to stand up to all these fake news reports, and the government says we need to take them, or the EU. Tell EU, you're taking a bunch of cowards. Send them back. And when they start doing this, you have to feel sorry for them. You have to give your home to them. You have to give everything you have to them.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not taking cowards.
So when we talked about like the peaceful people coming from the Middle East in the 70s, what we're talking about is married couples who are financially stable, the real doctors, the real engineers.
Right.
They had the finances to up and move their whole families to Europe.
Yep.
And they were not criminally minded. Okay? But like Mom's talking about, these other people, these young men, they're not financially stable. They're coming to live off of the government. They're coming to take over the government. Okay, so given that mindset, okay, they're coming in. This is what is giving rise to the Swedish election, where you have the Social Democrats who are not, the Social Democrats' grip is
On power is fading. That's what that title just said.
So, hang on. Sweden is set to see a major political shift after national election Sunday, as the populist Sweden Democrats have a chance to become the largest party in the country. And I am having a really hard time finding who is who in this this. Okay, so the Swedish Democrats are the populist people. There's the Social Democrats. That's the semantics. Social Democrats, Swedish Democrats. Okay, Swedish Democrats are the populists. Social Democrats are the socialists.
Got it.
Totally like semantics there. Totally messing with my head. All right, so today is an election, and I'm gonna see if this is in English. I think we may have seen it.
Svensk media hade fel.
Yeah, we watched this before. We're going to give it.
Massinvandringen är inte lönsam. Vi vet det idag.
We'll read it here.
You social democrats, you liberals, and you of the Swedish media were wrong. Mass immigration is not profitable. We know this today. We know that in reality it brings an enormous cost and strains on our society. Where there once was order and well-being, here now is barbed wire and surveillance cameras. You have created a Sweden where families are forced to move because they no longer feel safe in their own neighborhoods. A Sweden where the welfare is collapsing, where friends and family die waiting for medical care. And Sweden where women are raped, gang raped.
In parts of the country, right there.
There is, okay. Already civil war between rivaling gangs. Cars are burning, emergency personnel is assaulted, police stations are blown up. Officers are getting shot at. Terror is now a reality in Sweden. Swedes are attacked, maimed, and murdered on our own streets. You claim to now have realized the gravity of the situation, that you now support a more responsible immigration policy. Yet the mass immigration continues. Only this year adding up to 6 new Rinkeby. While you, at the same time, allow tens of thousands of people to reside, but no one else dares to say it, I will. You have not understood anything. It is you, Social Democrats, you, liberals, and you, Swedish media, that continues to create problems for our country. Through your reckless decisions, your inability to evaluate the result of your policies, and foremost, through your lies, you have created the problems that we all now are forced to live with, and you have tried hard to achieve this. People have been murdered, and people will continue to be murdered as a result of your policies, and you will continue to cover up and lie. The conflict in Sweden is not about who is right or left, rich or poor, man or woman. The conflict is between those who are destroying our country, those who are working to save it. The conflict is between you, I think he said, and us, even though the subtitle didn't come up. My name is Jimmy Akadson, and I will do everything in my power to solve this chaos that you Social Democrats and you liberals have created.
Vi kan
We can,
och vi måste lösa
and we
det.
will solve this.
That is an incredibly
that's really
great
powerful.
election ad. And the reason that the liberals have the moral high ground without any substance is because migration itself does not cause these things.
Right.
I mean, America is a country of migrants. So when the Democrats say, "Oh, America's a country of migrants and you don't want migrants coming in." No. There's a certain kind of migrant. When you have social benefits, when you have socialism, then you attract the wrong kind of people.
Okay, so I would like to address a comment that was either, I think it was on the Resistance Chicks channel, just last night. I typed a reply to it, and it had mentioned how it's kind of hypocritical because here we had the Pilgrims, which they obviously don't know history, but they had the Pilgrims coming over and stealing land from the Native Americans and how atrocious that is, and yada, yada, yada. Well, first of all, the Pilgrims themselves came and became friends with the Wampanoag, or Wampanoag, however you want to say it, natives that were here. They became like family with them, okay? And they formed an alliance and an allegiance.
50-year treaty, the longest Indian Caucasian
Why
treaty,
did they form it? I'm going to get to a
European
point in how this relates here in a second. Why did they form that allegiance? Because there were native tribes that were here that were literally savages. And I have no problem saying that because they murdered and they scalped and they pillaged other Native Americans. These were evil, evil tribes. Very, very, very bad people. So when people say they came to America and the Pilgrims came and they stole land from the natives, that is completely false. The other thing, one of the other things that makes this entirely different, like you just mentioned, we're talking about migrants going into a country that has social programs versus a vast wilderness of land owned by no one. And people came and they settled on land. The natives didn't even believe in owning property, okay? They just kind of were nomadic. They moved around according to the weather, according to where the buffalo were. I mean, seriously. So it's a whole different kind of dynamic when you're talking about America being a nation built on migrants, when we had the Oklahoma land rush where we were literally just giving land away for free for people to come and settle that land. Now we are talking about John Locke, and we have entered into what is called civil society. And within civil society, we create a set of rules and bounds. Leah's upset about my sleeve here.
Going on. Yeah.
Rules and boundaries that we all agree to live by. And if you want to enter into someone else's civil society, you have to agree to live by those rules and boundaries. And you cannot enter into that civil society thinking to yourself, we're going to have 1 million babies, and then change it through their own democratic process. You cannot do that. It is wrong, and it is okay to call out the wrongness of that. And it is okay to call out the fact that these migrants coming in just to leech off of a social contract that these people have, let's say in Sweden, and saying that they have every right to come and do that is wrong. Carry on.
All right, so you have the ruling Social Democrats, who have been the most dominant party in the country for decades, could not only lose power, but according to the polls, possibly even lose their status as the largest party in the country. A number of issues have dominated the debate leading up to the election, including the rise of levels. Here's the thing. They have these huge fires of these cars that I'm sure a lot of people are like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore, right? It's not going off.
No, Sydney.
Oh, okay. Since the last election in 2014, Sweden has seen a rise in the number of radical Islamic extremists, with the country seeing its first radical Islamic terror attack in Stockholm in 2017. The growth of heavily migrant-populated vulnerable suburbs, also known as no-go zones, due to difficulties, emergency services often face operating in them. You guys, the police don't even go to some of these places. I mean, like, you can see why the Eurosceptic, anti-mass migration Swedish Democrats, we don't even know where they stand on things like abortion or social programs, to call them far right, okay, is absolutely, we don't know. I honestly don't know where they stand. I bet they are socialists. I do know that they want to be out of the European Union, but there's only one party. They're all leftists.
Right.
In Sweden, they're all socialists. They've grown up on socialism. And then you have some sort of libertarian who says, hey, let's buck the whole universal healthcare and education system. Then you can say you have a far-right party. Until then, you have two forms of left parties. One is anti-migration and one is pro-migration. Okay? You have to start calling spades spades. So most polls show that the Social Democrats are in second place behind, or the Swedish Democrats are in second place behind the Social Democrats, despite big gains. But some show the party is in first, fueling speculation that the Swedish Democrats could upset the political establishment. We do know that the Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven came out really hard, calling everybody racist, and was like, in his last ditch
terrified.
effort.
Yeah,
right.
He's terrified, and you should be.
Yeah, so then there is an alliance. The center-right alliance consists of the Moderate Party, the Christian Democrats, the Liberals, the Center Party, who have steadily adopted many of the talking points of the Swedish Democrats. So that could be a real challenge to this ruling party of the Social Democrats and this Moderate Party. So here you kind of see the makeup here. I wanted to show you this.
Oh, no, we didn't really see it.
Well, they can look. I wanted you to see this from Drudge.
Okay.
Sweden swings right.
I love that title.
This is the top story on the Drudge Report. When he does something big, it means that's big.
Right.
So that's what's happening.
And you want to know who else goes to Drudge? Who goes to Drudge, Leah?
Trump.
Trump goes to Drudge.
So you've got Swedes who are voting today in an election dominated by fears over asylum seekers and welfare, with the anti-immigration Sweden Democrats vying to become the biggest party in the country, long seen as a bastion of liberal values. Far-right parties have made spectacular gains through Europe in recent years after the refugee crisis, with an influx of 163,000 asylum seekers in 2015. It's not as many as other countries have seen, but per capita, it's the most. Traditional parties have failed to respond. When you have, we show you guys this stuff all the time, okay? They see it too in Sweden, but legally they're not allowed to say anything. Now, how can they vote? How can they vote? They voice with their vote because they're not allowed to say anything.
Exactly.
Because what's so interesting in these liberal societies,
that really gets me, because I know where you're going with this, because in these liberal societies we've got everything is okay, the LGBT community is put on a pedestal,
transgender, sex,
whatever you feel inside,
right,
no matter how morally wrong it has been for the past 6,000 years, considered by everyone, you're allowed to flaunt it, you're allowed to show it, you're allowed to be it, okay? But if you are what they consider to be morally incorrect by being a conservative Christian with biblical beliefs, oh, no, heck no, you got to keep that in your closet. You can't let that out, or we throwing your behind in jail. That is what's going to happen. You can be a transvestite, you can be a transsexual, you can be a child molester.
Is great, yeah.
It's getting to the point where you can be a child molester, and we just have to welcome you because you can't help the fact that your only attraction is to little children, and we welcome you, and you're allowed to speak out and talk about your feelings. But if someone comes out and says, I don't like that these migrants are coming over here and raping our women, not your butt go to jail.
All right. So already a pregnant member of the right-wing Swedish Democrats has been attacked outside of a polling station.
Wow. Attackers
screamed at terrified Emilia Orfana, calling her a whore and a racist as she campaigned. And I can't... 35 miles south of Stockholm. She was working in a polling station when she was targeted by the thugs. She said she was terrified of being kicked in the stomach and added, I felt very worried and afraid. Another representative for the party and a third person who had come to vote were also verbally abused by these two youngsters.
Wow.
These migrants who people are voting right now because they're afraid.
She literally says, I was terrified he was going to hit me in the stomach as I am pregnant.
He said he would step on my colleague's head and he would kill us. Wow. The two men also tried to grab the two members of the Sweden Democrats and take their ballots. He said they called her a racist and a whore. When it became clear that she was being threatened, members of other parties present at the polling station came running out for help. She says, I feel grateful to my colleagues from other parties for running over to help. But seriously, that's why she's there. Mm-hmm. And she can't even go there because...
Wow.
She goes, it was a fine democratic act. They showed the act, any act of violence is not acceptable no matter who you're voting for. Now, I do believe that Swedes believe that. But that's not enough. Jimmy Atkinson later commented on the incident. He said, I think there have been an unusually high amount of attacks on people out rallying for their parties in this election.
That was the guy that we just saw in the video there.
So other people were called fascists and racists and things like that. So I haven't played this video, but I'm going to go ahead and play the...
Polls today in a tightly fought election which could see a right-wing anti-immigration party make huge gains. The Sweden Democrats have risen in popularity on the back of fears about asylum and welfare. The leader of the far-right party, Jimmie Åkesson, spelt out his policies on the last day of campaigning.
Like I said, you have to stop using the term far-right.
We're going to do like some sort of little quip that I hope can go viral explaining the far-right, far-left, or not far-right, the left, far-right thing that is totally false. We have to do that.
I haven't heard him say anything about abolishing abortion. I haven't heard him say anything about, like, no rule of law whatsoever in the country. Mm-hmm. No police. I mean, that's far right. That's anarchism.
Yes.
Libertarians believe in minimal government.
Yes.
Minimal, especially minimal federal government.
Sweden needs breathing space, he said. We need tight, responsible immigration policies. And you know something? There's only one guarantee for...
You can't be an anarchist and say we need tight immigration policies.
Right.
Tight and responsible immigration in Sweden. One of the parliamentary candidates opposing Åkesson is social...
And you can't say right or left based on one issue alone. You can't say that people who want immigrants are left and people who don't want immigrants are right. Okay, you can't.
It's absurd that they have turned that into. I mean, it's a way of explaining things that has never, ever been used before.
Exactly. See, there's a vision that somebody has a moral code, right?
Yeah.
So communists and socialists believe that the government should take care of the people and the citizens.
Yes.
That government should provide for everybody's needs and nobody should be poor, and government should provide housing for the poor and education for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's a communist, socialist, left-wing, the government should control speech. Now, liberals...
Which, for the record, from a historic standpoint, that's a fairly new concept.
Exactly.
Most of the time, it's the king taking all y'all money and you get nothing.
Right.
Like, it's not the idea of, we're going to provide for everyone, we're going to take care of everyone. That is not a modern concept.
Who is
and libertarianism has been traditionally like right wing in America. So all these, we're throwing around titles and nobody knows what they mean. They've lost all meaning.
Right.
Self an immigrant from Somalia.
For me, Jimmie Åkesson, the Sweden he wants to see, that is not a future. That is to go back to the history. For me, when he's saying the immigrants not welcome to Sweden, when I know Sweden welcome a lot of immigrants, when I know Sweden is well respected in the whole world to welcome, and actually the immigrants build up this country.
But high levels of crime in some Swedish cities and the 2017 terror attack in Stockholm have driven a shift to the right.
What the heck?
I like, I think Donna Terry and somebody else in the chat, let me see, had said it this way, Abominable Snowman, it's globalists versus nationalists and Marxists versus patriot.
And that is what it breaks down to.
Exactly.
And you just need to say, they had said populist socialist candidate, right? Nationalist candidate, that makes sense.
Right.
Eurosceptic makes sense.
Sure.
We have to get rid of this whole far right thing. It's absolutely absurd. Yeah. Sweden election, police investigate after Islamist threat to execute this popular leader's family. A part Arabic language threat to behead the leader of the Swedish anti-mass migration party leader has triggered a police investigation. So he's putting his life on the line there. And let's see if we have any updates, live updates. Former neo-Nazi party. We did see some crazy Nazis in there. And I don't know if half of it isn't just, plants there. So I want to see if there's
Sweden
the election's going on. Obviously, they're 6 hours ahead of us, just like in the UK.
What's that?
So 6:30 p.m. update their time. 41% of voting
differently than they did the last time. Holy cow!
That is 7% more than in 2014 when 44% voted differently.
Oh, wow.
38% of Swedes decided who to vote for today. Swedish State Channel conducted a poll which shows that 38% of the voters decided on who to vote for today. This is a record compared to 33% last time. Queues outside the polling stations are so long, people go home without voting. Banned State Channel SVT has arrived at Sweden Democrats campaign rally despite major disagreement. The Swedish SVT gets permission to broadcast the far right's, how about the populists' last campaign rally in Stockholm, although the channel was banned by the SD leader, Jimmy Atkinson, yesterday. He just confirmed they will have access to the party. Attacks on polling stations continue. And the Sweden Democrats continue to divide the center-right bloc. Conservative parties in Sweden are divided in the question of whether to collaborate or not with the Sweden Democrats to make sure their alliance will receive the majority of the votes in the election.
So what that exit poll earlier was saying, just to make it clear, because the way you read it wasn't very clear, it was saying that 38% of the people that went to vote only decided just today how they were going to vote. I think that's really interesting.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That is. And, wow. That is true. Thank you. I didn't even read that right.
Well, you just kind of read it in one long line.
Yeah, you're right.
They divided they decided who they were going to vote for today. That's not, no, you just vote today, for who you decided on.
Today, thank you.
They decided just today.
What else do you have? So, in Germany, we covered the Schmitz protests, and they were calling it far right.
I think it's Chemnitz.
Whatever.
Chemnitz.
And the German Interior Minister believes mass migration has become the mother of all political problems for the EU country, while Angela Merkel is describing the third world influx merely as a challenge. And he says that the German Interior Minister said he would have been out there marching with the people. And that it wasn't, he says, if I were not a minister, I too would have taken to the streets as a citizen. Of course not with any of the radicals, but just being out there saying this is, this mass migration is wrong.
That's a really awesome picture of Merkel, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
She looks really bad.
Exactly. Wow. And the Eurosceptic mass migration alternative for Germany is now the most popular party in East Germany. I've got another article where Macron, he is afraid. He only has a 31% approval rating in France. It's just much lower, obviously, than President Trump.
Dude, President Trump, I don't know what his current approval rating is overall, but amongst the people that voted for him, it's like 90%, man.
Yeah, so people hate Macron, and that he is the vision that he was the globalist hope to continue the globalism.
Right.
And people don't even like him. Nobody likes him.
Right.
And he is afraid. He literally said, I do think that the European Union could crumble during the next election in the spring. So the populist alternative for Germany has become the most popular party in Germany. According to the polls, this new data shows Germans becoming more critical of mass migration. A new poll conducted by the polling firm Ifferstat Map shows the anti-mass migration AFD. Again, I'm glad that they're labeling it the anti-mass migration party, because you can't even label them far right either. Because everybody is a socialist in Germany, from what I understand economically. Okay, so you can't say far right. You can say right leaning or something.
Exactly.
Because I some of them are Catholic. I know some of them are anti-abortion, morally, things like that. But this leader right here, she's a lesbian. How do you call a far? Most people consider right wing like moral values and things like that. So they're at 27%.
Wow.
Where Merkel's party is at 23%. And the only reason that Merkel has power is because they have teamed up with the SPD, which has 15%. Okay. The results for the western half of the country highlight the continuing divide between the two halves of the country, separated for decades during the Cold War, with the CDU still in first place, followed by the leftist Social Democrats, who are far less popular in the East. So I wanted to give you kind of an update there. And let's see. We're gonna go back over. I think I've done these ones here. I want to go back over to the UK. And what's going on in the UK right now? Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson.
Oh my gosh.
Now, honestly, guys, I would much rather see a Rees-Mogg as your prime minister. Boris Johnson, he's kind of a wild cracker. I mean, just look at his hair. He's just kind of crazy for me. Too crazy for me, for my taste, but I'm not in the UK. I don't know. You guys might like him.
He's a bit nuts.
So, he's in hot water again for another analogy. He says that May's Brexit plan wraps a suicide vest around our constitution and hands the detonator to Brussels.
Hang on. I want to just interrupt you right here because I want to show you guys something. So Trump's approval rating on I'm at the projects5038.com. 538. When you go to all polls, there's two different polls really. He has an approval rating of 40.6% that approve, 53.4% that disapprove. But when you actually drop it down, it says polls of likely or registered voters. It goes up to 42.5. Okay? When you go down to polls of adults, his approval rating drops down. And I found I found that really kind of telling.
Kids like Donald Trump?
Kids like Donald Trump.
That's funny.
Okay, that's a little bit weird to me. I'm thinking of I think that maybe, possibly, we have a generation of kids I think this is hopeful, of kids that are rising up, waking up, or maybe, just maybe, the children that are actually answering the polls are the ones that care. The ones that have a vested interest in, I don't know, I just thought that was like, interesting. All right, carry on.
All right, so ex-Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has launched his most scathing attack on Theresa May, her Remainer-dominated government, and its Brexit strategy to date, saying she has wrapped a suicide vest around the British Constitution and handed the detonator to Michael Barnier. The former two-time mayor of London, who was ad hoc leader of the Vote Leave group during the EU referendum, slated the government's utterly feeble performance in the Brexit negotiations so far, describing the Remain supporting Prime Minister's approach as, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. Under the Chequers proposal, we are set to agree to accept their rules forever with no say on the making of those rules. It is humiliation. We look like a 7-stone weakling being comically bent out of shape by a 500-pound gorilla. Minces no words. Johnson, who resigned from May's cabinet shortly after the Brexit Secretary David Davis, when the Chequers blueprint was imposed, hinted not for the first time that Remainers had deliberately sabotaged the negotiations in order to ensure Britain remains embedded in the EU's customs union, single market, and associated free movement regime. He explained that the issue of Northern Ireland and the supposedly all-important requirement to maintain an open border with the Irish Republic was being exploited by Brussels and the British Remainers, who claim this can only be achieved by either surrendering the Northern Ireland to the customs union and single market or keeping the whole UK inside of them. Chequers proposes a solution Johnson believes is, if anything, even more pathetic, namely adopting a facsimile of the EU's regulatory rulebook and having the British courts enforce the EU's interpretation of that rulebook on its behalf and calling that taking back control. Johnson outlined many technical solutions to the Northern Ireland border issue, which the government has, in his view, purposely declined to pursue because there has always been a secret agenda to keep the UK in the customs union and effectively in the single market. In a weird, semi-masochistic way, we have created the means by which the EU can bully us. We have conspired in this threat to the British Union. We have put our own heads deliberately on the block. It is time to scrap the backstop, fix the borders for frictionless trade, and get back to the open and dynamic approach outlined in Theresa May's original Lancaster House speech, with a big Canadian-style free trade deal. Otherwise, we should tell our friends they won't get a penny.
So everything that Boris is saying right now is, by and large, spot on. However, I don't trust the guy as far as I can throw him. So I'm a little bit wary, I guess I should say, of Boris Johnson. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm glad that he's speaking out, but I don't know.
Random news story for the UK.
Is that a dude?
That's the dude with a wig or haircut. I don't know. That's definitely a wig. Too much hair. A transgender person convicted of multiple rapes and sexual abuse of a child carried out sex acts on fellow inmates within days of being remanded into a woman's prison. Convicted at Leeds Crown Court, where Tommy Robinson went, of 3 rapes. Karen White, who was previously known as David Thompson and born Stephen Wood, he also has an identity crisis of names, was sent to the HMP Newhall in September 2017 after authorities heard the 52-year-old identified as a woman. The prison service has apologized after White admitted to 2 counts of sexual assault against 2 women while in prison, while a judge ordered 2 further charges of sex attacks on fellow inmates to remain on file. White, who was previously jailed for 18 months in 2001 after committing offenses of indecent assault and gross indecency with a child. Now, I want to know why he was only sentenced to 18 months, less than 2 years, for a sex act on a child. What is wrong with you people in the UK? If somebody is that mentally disturbed, they're not going. The UK. No, I am blaming the whole UK because their punishments. I got an alarm going off. Their punishments for pedophile behavior is unacceptable. Okay, and I know ours is too, but I know of a guy who got like 20 years in prison because he had child porn on his computer. Okay, I have never seen anything like 20 years for child pedophilia in the UK. All right, thinking that these people, you get 18 months when you rob a store of some potato chips and a pop. Okay, think about it for a year and a half and come out. These people are not, do you know what they're going to be thinking about for a year and a half? You're not going to reform a pedophile in a year and a half.
But you might reform a pop and chip thief.
But you might. Or maybe bicycle thief at most.
Right. Okay, right? So Worth a Look says, totally agree, Leah. It's a disgrace the sentences we give out here.
I'm not going to tell you exactly what he did. But he was married with a child beforehand. His friends say he was actually not a transgender, but a drag artist who just chose to be, hey, if I'm going to go to prison, I want to go to women's prison. So I'm a drag artist. I'm going to put it.
No, exactly.
And he just like couldn't help himself, right? So the judge obviously didn't recognize that this guy is, here's the thing, Tommy Robinson and other people like Paul Manafort, they get 23 solitary confinement.
Yeah.
This dude is committing all kinds of crazy acts. And I guarantee you, even in the man's prison, he's not in solitary confinement.
Right.
If you have committed some sort of crazy act against a prisoner, then you go into solitary confinement.
Bingo.
That's what solitary confinement is for.
Right.
But they're putting people of conscience and, like, tax evasion people in solitary confinement. The reason you have solitary confinement is so that you don't hurt other people in the prison.
Correct.
Okay? So, a transgender, okay, you want to be in the women's prison. Okay? Right. I get it. You're going to be in solitary confinement, and you're not going to be around any other prisoners. That's the way you handle that.
Or you just don't let the transgenders in the women's prison.
If they're going to do it, that's how they have to do.
I'm with you.
That
right.
That is a compromise, I say.
Okay.
All right.
Patriot Gallery says, throw the pedos in the sea, far out to sea. Well said, Mama.
Far out to sea. All right. We're going to do this one first, then we're going to cover a little bit because it's something that's been in my Twitter feed constantly is Labor's anti-Semitism. And I haven't wanted to cover it because, like, to me, it's like, whatever, it's their thing, right? Whatever, Labor, I don't really care about what they're doing. But I have to say, I think I have to say something now. Kill, kill, kill. A woman in a headscarf chases pedestrians with foot-long knife in English town, 1 wounded. British police say a man suffered minor injuries when a woman wielding a foot-long knife.
No, that's way bigger than a foot.
That looks about 12 inches, doesn't it?
It looks closer to like
looks
15.
like a ruler. Let's get a ruler. I bet it's about a foot. Anyways, chased passers-by through a northern England town centre. The South Yorkshire Police Force said a woman was in custody after Saturday's incident. The force said counter-terrorism detectives are supporting the investigation as police seek a motive. Witnesses say a woman in a headscarf chased pedestrians around the area and shouted threats to kill while market traders were setting up for the day. Trader Abdul Razak says he followed her to the town train station and identified her to police. She still had the knife and said, "Kill, kill, kill." The woman was arrested and police said they recovered a kitchen knife. So
they do that just so that the kitchen knives start getting banned. I don't know how you guys are going to cut anything in the UK.
I don't know.
Wow.
Mealy-mouthed police chief skewered for refusing to say radical Islamic terrorism. UKIP London Assembly member Peter Whittle raked Britain's top police officer, Cressida Dick, over the coals for her mealy-mouthed description of radical Islamic terrorists as so-called Islamist inspired. I'm just going to let you see this exchange.
Whether you agree with them or not, and I don't. If you start talking about people like terrorism, I think you're onto a real problem.
I don't know how many volume coming out of here, I don't think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not going to do any good.
You want to take my video and play it there?
I could.
Yeah, let's not waste time trying to find that. So.
That's strange.
Let's see.
It's probably a button that got pressed down there.
Why don't you just bring up
mixed speakers? I'm
going to go to the next story while she brings this up. It'll be on YouTube.
Okay.
Grooming gangs. Majority of Telford sex abuse referrals involve children under 15. In some of the documentaries, we see teenage girls, right? And you know there is a difference between the teenage girls and pedophiles. So under 15, you actually are seeing
this is my first video I've done.
Pedophiles, people who are attracted to children. The majority of referrals for suspected child grooming and sex cases in Telford are against girls under the age of 15, according to data obtained by the BBC. The Freedom of Information Request data obtained by the broadcast revealed that 268 referrals have been made to the West Mercia police since an investigation was launched into child sex exploitation. Of the 268, 181 of the alleged victims are under the age of 15, below the age of sexual consent, with the majority of cases being girls between the ages of 12 and 15. Since 2016, the team has arrested 56 people, resulting in 29 charges. The investigations came after the Mirror broke a story in March that as many as 1,000 children may have been groomed, raped, trafficked for sex, or even murdered by gangs of mostly Muslim men of South African extraction.
Are you ready? Or no?
No, I'll finish this.
Okay.
In the town over a 40-year period, making it potentially the worst. One victim was Lucy Lowe, who was groomed and raped by Azhar Alid Mahmood at the age of 14. She had given birth to his child, and at 16, again pregnant, Lucy, her sister, and her mother were killed in a house fire started by this guy. Fierce criticism has been leveled against local authorities for failing to act. And you have the Rothschild abuse and things like that. So finding the age is sad, because 12 to 15 is a very vulnerable age, and it's just really sad. Now, speaking of age of consent, which I believe should always be 18, especially for people over 18, they're thinking about raising the age of marriage to 18 in the UK to combat child brides. So I don't see why that's not.
Hang on, what is it
a thing
right now?
I don't know, probably 16. So I'll go ahead and play that.
All right.
I'm sure.
Just to make that point, actually, whether you agree with them or not, and I don't, if you start talking about people like the EDL in terms of terrorism, I think you're onto a real problem, actually. You know, the fact is that I don't know whether you agree with this commission, but I mean, we might not agree with groups or whatever, but you've got to be careful when you start saying people are terrorists. Can I just ask one question, actually? You're talking about right-wing groups. Totally understand that. You seem very clear on that, Commissioner. why then, as you just said, do you have to say extreme right wing? You have no problem saying that, but then you go on to say so-called Islamist inspired. Why are you so mealy-mouthed? You just said that, so-called Islamist inspired. The guy who, for example, last year ran into Westminster and killed 5 people with his car was very clear. He was waging jihad. Right. Most of these people have been very, very clear. Why do you have to say so-called Islamists?
So first point, I think it's very important not to call people terrorists who don't show the signs of terrorism. And I absolutely, as the Commissioner of the Met, will defend till my dying day, literally, the best aspects of our country in terms of people being able to express their opinions within the law. I say the phrase so-called Islamist. Sometimes, not always. I'm sorry if it offends you. I say it because I think as a senior police officer it is important for me, obviously, not to be mealy-mouthed, but equally not to randomly upset people who might get upset. So,
okay. So it's okay to say right-wing extremist, upsetting all right-wing leaning people.
Yeah.
But it's not okay to say Islamists.
Right.
It's no problem upsetting right-wing leaning people, calling them racist and fascists, and it's part of, the deeper underlying aspects of being right-winged. It's like you're always on the cusp of being a racist.
Right.
Because it's in your DNA.
So I try to pick my words. Now, I've obviously upset you in the way I've described it.
No, we're talking about counter-terrorism.
Yes,
are you actually saying, Commissioner...
Shall we not speak across each other,
Sorry.
please?
The majority of people carrying out terrorist attacks, right, 90% are Islam-inspired. We might not like it, you might not like to say that, but it is the case. Why do you say things like so-called Islamist? You're the Commissioner.
Because I really don't think we should get into a long conversation about this.
Rather
Not least
than
because
You
you
can't
want
answer it.
to
She's
push
not
on.
going to answer it.
But because in the name of Islam is very different from Islamist. For a start, we could get into a really long semantic conversation here, Peter. I don't want.
I
to
agree,
be annoying,
Commissioner. But why can't we take them at their word? Why is it so difficult to take them at their word?
So obviously there are terrorists who have said they are doing this to take forward what they would describe and other people would describe as Islamist causes.
There are some terrorists who say they're doing it in the name of Islam. No. All terrorists who are Muslim do it because they're inspired by their little book.
Other people who some people might call Islamist, who actually haven't said that, don't appear to be doing exactly that. It's quite a complicated area.
I agree with you, but I want to make this point because this is discerning. The fact is, the vast bulk of terrorist attacks, whether it is 7/7, whether it's Westminster, whether it was in Manchester, whether it was in Borough, are Islam-inspired, Commissioner. And I mean, the fact is, you have got to face up to this. You're quite clear about what it is with right-wing extremism. I wish you would be as explicit about this.
That's enough. I don't think you need to...
Oh, wow. That was really, really, really powerful. I'm so glad that he did that. I have a couple of thoughts on that really quickly before Leah moves on. And that is this. I like to always bring it back to something that we can understand, that we can talk about together. And let's just use, for an example, Christianity. Mm-hmm. Okay? We believe here, we know that Jesus Christ and God really is the only God, right? That ends that argument. We just have to start there. So when people do things that are wrong in the name of Christianity, they aren't actually Christians. You can't be a Christian and murder someone. Mm-hmm. Okay? You can't, in cold blood, right? That sort of thing. Not in self-defense. You understand what I'm saying? You can't be a Christian and rape someone. You can't be a Christian because as soon as you commit that act of sin, you've turned your back on Jesus. It really is that simple. So you can't do those things as a Christian. You can do them in the name of Christianity. And that was the argument that the commissioner was trying to say. Well, they're doing it in the name of Islam. But what that commissioner was saying was somehow she knew as a fact the thing that we as Christians know, that you really are a Muslim and really do follow Muhammad, okay, and Allah, right? And you can't be a Muslim. You can only be doing it in the name of Islam. if you actually commit and act like that. And the difference is this. The things that the Quran teach allow for these acts of
the
terror
unbeliever,
that they are committing.
There's beheadings.
And in Christianity, we don't have that. Okay, so it doesn't even boil down to whether Allah is really God or God the Father, Jehovah, is really God, and the people that follow them in correspondence. It doesn't even boil down to that, even though in my opinion it is. Even strictly from a worldly standpoint, they have an instruction manual that gives them not only the right to, according to their religion, to do so, but it encourages it. Whereas in Christianity, if a Christian were to commit any of those wrongdoings, they don't have a biblical basis to stand on to do it.
The authorities, and you can bring up the Ari Nigel video because this goes along with that.
Okay.
And then we'll end with Jeremy Corbyn, whatever. Labour Party. Jesus is being... The Roman guards were coming to take Jesus and take him. And Peter got his sword out and cut off one of the dude's ears. And Jesus said, no, that's not what we're not doing that.
Right.
And he picked up the ear, he put it back on the guy's head, and he healed him.
Yeah.
Did Muhammad ever... Well, obviously, Muhammad didn't do anything like that. From what I understand, I don't think he did any miracles. Maybe he did, I don't know. But Jesus was all about healing. And he said, my kingdom is not of this world. I don't come here to set up this worldly kingdom. His disciples wanted to fight. Mm-hmm. And he said, we're not here to start a fight.
Right.
Okay? Paul even says... I'm not telling you to stop hanging around people in the world who are sinners, the homosexuals. Mm-hmm. If you got to do business, you're in the world, be in the world, but don't be of the world. But if somebody is literally calling themselves a brother or a sister or a leader who is habitually sinning, then he says, listen, you don't even eat with that person. So, but that's the difference between Christianity and Islam. And that's also the difference between... Okay, so Judaism, you're going to watch this video and you're going to see Nigel Farage say, well, there's a lot of things in the Old Testament that are barbarous. Yeah. And that is true, okay? The Old Testament law is barbarous, but there was a barbarous time worldwide. Yeah. Okay? Everybody was sacrificing people. Everybody was putting... What?
In the Old Testament, nobody sacrificed anybody. That's the key. The things that were happening in the Old Testament where you had to punish somebody...
when I say the Old Testament, what I mean is in the Old Testament, you read of what other people, other cultures were doing.
Exactly. But even with the Israelites and the law and the things that they were told to do, whether it was to stone somebody or kill somebody that was caught in adultery or what have you, there were things like child sacrifices that were condemned. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying there is a difference.
On the scale of the lesser of two evils, okay? So God reigned in the barbarous, almost like medieval mindset, the uncivilized mindset of worldwide people, okay? Yeah. All nations at that time, all peoples they would sacrifice kids on altars, they sacrificed animals. And so God said, if you're going to do this and you're going to be part of this system and you want to sacrifice animals, here's the rules. Yeah. Here's the boundaries. Okay. And so God literally put boundaries on man's sinful nature, you could say. But what Islam doesn't have is Jesus the Messiah. Yeah. To explain to people what the Quran should have meant, maybe. Okay? So when Jesus comes, he shows people why the law was set up. Yeah. So when you have the acts of, I'm going to tell Nigel Farage, when you have an act of stoning for adultery, Jesus, being the Son of the God, the Word of God, who set up these rules, showed us what it meant. Yes. Okay? When the religious leaders hatefully brought a woman caught in adultery to Jesus and said, we caught her in the act. What would you have us do? Because the law says we should put her to death.
First of all, he wrote something in the dirt, and when I get there, I'm going to ask what it was. But second of all, he said, "You who are without sin, cast the first stone."
Take it away.
All right, Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage. Oops.
We were watching the Bolt report we'd seen, and it's created a lot of conversation where you condemn those in the right that are waging war on Islam.
On the entire religion, yes. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, you can do it if you want, but you'll lose. You know. I mean, look. We have a massive problem right across the West with Islamism. I could take you right now to parts of Paris, parts of Brussels that are now unrecognisable as Western cities.
I've been there and I've seen it. I've served in the Middle East, and I understand what you're talking about. Yeah. I guess what people are asking is, the only reason we're not going to get into that battle is because we're going to lose, or because it's
morally it's wrong. Morally it's wrong, and we're going to lose. Look, the vast majority of Muslims living in Western countries are settled, are integrating. Then you find the ghettos where they're not even learning English. It's a disaster, and that extreme culture is flourishing. Let's fight Islamism. Let's fight the bad guys. Let's be a lot more robust about our Judeo-Christian culture. Let's stop practices like FGM being carried out wholesale. Listen, I'm not weak on this. I'm tough on this. But if this descends into a battle of hatreds,
absolutely,
history teaches us the ending will be very bad indeed.
Can I ask you straight? Do you think Islam is compatible? Islam itself, the ideology, is it compatible with Western values or not?
Is the Old Testament compatible with Western values? I mean, you could ask that question, actually, of every religion. It is, of course, about interpretation.
Absolutely, I agree
there are latter parts of the Quran that are troubling, but do you know something? In 21st century world, there are earlier parts of the Bible that are troubling. This is about interpretation. Do I think there is hope that we can get the vast majority of Muslims on our side against the bad guys? That is what we absolutely must do.
Can I put it to you, last comment, because I know I'm getting in trouble, last comment, because somebody who's served in the Middle East and has seen it close up, the problem is that I see, and many see, is that Christianity, Judaism, they went through reformations. The problem in Islam is that the Quran is the word of God, can be unchanged. Muhammad was the perfect man. Every Muslim must emulate and be him. He married a 6-year-old. He killed 600 Jews. How do we reform that when they say he is the perfect man? He's not Jesus.
I think there is a strong argument for reformation to go on within that religion. I wouldn't argue against that at all. But believe me, we've got to box clever on this. We've got to get this right. We must not encourage religious hatred between different religions and indeed between different races. We've got to get this right. We must uphold our principles, our culture, our heritage.
But do you think that's possible? Do you think it's possible to...
Well, if it's not, we've lost.
Well, maybe fighting it is the answer.
What? So how many will you kill?
That's the question. That's the question.
No, I'm asking you a question. What are you going to do, kill them all?
I don't. Absolutely, I'm not pro-genocide. I personally believe that when you say moderate Islam, often I hear you talk about the moderates. Define moderates. There is one Islam.
I meet them every single... I think you're missing a trick here. I think you are saying that everybody that's Islamic is, hard line on the religion. The vast majority are not. The vast majority of people of Islamic faith living in Britain are pretty well integrated into our society. I had lots of them vote for me.
And I would argue they're not Muslim. They're Muslim by identifying as Muslim, like I identify as a Jew. But they're not Muslim by faith. You either believe Muhammad is the perfect man or not.
Then you would say that every Christian hates all homosexuals. Thank you.
I don't see.
While I love Avi, okay, and he has a lot of good points. He has tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. And his tunnel vision keeps him from seeing the whole picture.
Right.
And I think that the same thing with Tommy. You get so excited about saying stuff. You've come to a realization. You talk to so many Islamists.
Right.
And he says the problem with Islam is it never went through reform. Now, The problem with Islam isn't that it never went through reform, because it has gone through reform. Okay, we've seen reform in Iran and in Saudi Arabia and in Egypt. We've seen a reform in, let's say, Syria. We've seen reform. We've seen people who, you know what, I'm going to go with this culture, the family, the culture of, might even wear the headscarf, but these latter parts of the Quran and some of the books afterwards, I'm not going to follow those books.
Right.
I personally am not going to follow those or want to be part of that. There are people who've done that. And you train up a child in the way they should go. The reason you have all these young men flooding Europe is from they're basically born 1980 on.
Yeah.
So they're going to be anywhere from 40 years old to children. All right, so that block, 40 and under, which is what we're seeing the terrorists as, right? And mostly it's like 20 and 22, people who've been around for a while. Yeah,
right.
We're going to sum things up. So you have this around for a while, and they've been taught by these hardline Islamists. But they need a physical Jesus or something to come in and say,
exactly,
this is what I meant. I didn't mean for you to be stoning everybody out of hatred and anger. What I meant was adultery is so bad and it's so hurtful, and what you've done to that person, your spouse, is so bad, you've got to root it out.
Exactly.
Okay? That adultery is that bad. But he didn't mean for us to go randomly just killing everybody out of anger and spite.
Right.
The same Jesus, we can talk all day long about Jesus explaining to us everything in the Old Testament that seems weird. So when you talk about interpretation, what Nigel said there at the end about the homosexuals really breaks my heart, because he's like, well, then Christianity, everybody would hate homosexuals.
Christianity has nothing to do with hating homosexuals.
No, but you can say that homosexual acts are sinful, just like I say, I have friends who are homosexuals. I have friends who have sex outside of marriage. There are acts that God views as hurtful to ourselves and to others. But we're not supposed to go in and reform the entire world and go in and say God hates you.
I would love it if Nigel would just insert, then you would say all Christians hate all fornicators.
Yeah.
Because that would make more sense. All right, so what do you have? We really have to wrap this up because we have a pet visit to do.
What you can do is just take out the Corbin thing out of the title, and we can just wrap up.
Or I could just leave you.
No, we got to go.
Well, I mean, you could stay.
I'm not really good at shutting things down and doing things down.
Okay, all right. So we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to take Corbin out of the title. Sorry, guys. With the labor anti-Semitism problem, because we will cover that probably later on.
Yeah. I also have a really neat video which I want to show to you guys. It's not even up. I have a really cool video on this Afro Forum. This guy totally explains the history of African farms and stuff like that. So I can't wait to show you that. Maybe we'll do a video tomorrow night or something like that.
That sounds like a plan. All right, so I need to wrap this up, and I need to do a little bit of order of business. A lot of you guys are subscribed to Chris Holman's channel and love when Kelly and Chris go live on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I love it. You love it. Chris has had a word from the Lord, and it's coming off of all social media and off of YouTube. So Kelly, and I think her husband Eric, I can speak to that a little bit, are going to be taking over the Chris and Kelly live show. So you will find them, I think, still on Fridays at 9 p.m. after we go live on Kelly P-B_fam. Kelly, you can leave a link, and I know all you have to do is click on her name, but I'll try to remember to put the link to your channel in the description so you guys can find them there. And we wish Chris all the best. I know that God has good things in store for him. I'm hoping it's the ministry. I think it is a little bit. So you guys can be praying for Chris. You can still email him. Kelly, I don't know if you have his email address, and you could throw that in the chat as well. That would be fantastic. We're going to sign off. We can't do a song today because we have a lot of pet visits to do and a lot of things for the rest of the day. When is the next stream? So What asks. Maybe tomorrow night, possibly.
I'd love to go over this. White stole the land narrative is false. Farm grabs pushed by Marxist-Leninists drunk on hatred. This guy does a 10-minute video. It's awesome. I want to show it to you.
All right, so let's make a plan. We will try to do a show tomorrow. What time do you want to do it?
I don't know. We don't know what tomorrow
No,
holds.
we can.
I can't.
Yes, we can. I can look at pull up our calendar here. We'll find out exactly what we're doing tomorrow when we can squeeze in a show. But thank you to our moderators who were here. I know it got a little bit crazy in the chat today.
It could be afternoon if it's raining, right?
It could be in the afternoon.
I don't know. We're just, please.
How about after this would be in the afternoon, maybe after this. So I'm thinking somewhere around 5 or 6-ish, possibly. But you never know. Sorry, we can't really tell you. You have to just keep checking back. All right, we love you. God loves you. God bless. And remember,
it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's the truth.
Okay, guys. Kelly says that Chris's email is maddogs424@gmail.com. And our P.O. Box is Milford, Ohio, P.O. Box 107, Milford, Ohio, 45150. All right, you guys, we love you. God bless. Thanks for being here, and we will see you for
guys
sure
are awesome.
on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. God bless. Is that going? There it goes.
I was cold all alone. No place for home every day. So afraid. But you call my name. Turn my eyes to the lies.
So Leah says, you're still here. Leah says if we go live during the day, then you people who are still in the UK could still see it. So possibly we might end up doing it earlier in the day.
Yeah.
Like maybe 2-ish, which would be your guys' time in the UK, like 7 o'clock in the evening. We might be able to squeeze in a program there. Let's tentatively plan for that. If we're not here, we're not here. All right, you guys. We'll tentatively plan for 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. God bless. Or what, Leah? Or noon. Try noon first. That's 5 your time in the UK. Noon or 2. Because we have a pet visit that we need to do in between then. So, all right. Now I'm really signing off. You just get to stay with me till the end.